All right, so next up, we have Crit Think. See, on a recent episode, Alex, you might remember that we ended up kind of glossing over the idea of why there are shops and dungeons.
We
Uh,
did.
main,
About
y-
we were talking about the how long you're in the dungeon, right?
yes, I believe that was the
I
last
think
Crit
yes.
Think we did. And so the question that we really have on this Crit Think is, why did you set up a shop in here? um, it's it's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't necessarily see this a lot in tabletop gaming. I mean, I suppose you could put it in there.
Sure. I don't see why you couldn't have a shop in the middle of a dungeon in a tabletop game.
Right.
But you're right. I don't see it very often in there either. I haven't really played a lot of adventures or dungeon crawls.
Hmm.
But unless it's like a town that is a dungeon, like I think Tomb of Horror has a town,
Okay. Yeah.
for instance. Um, unless it's like that,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see it very often. But in video games, you do see that more often.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't see it in movies either. That would have made Die Hard seem much weirder. Like if all of a sudden John McClane's crawling through a vent, and there's like a shopkeeper. What are you buying? And he has to like get
Yeah,
the
that would have
machine
been
gun.
weird.
Yeah.
That would have been weird.
That's how he gets all of his equipment in that. Do you want to buy some healing items for your feet? Um, for that glass. But in video games, you see it quite a bit. There's what? Spelunky is probably one of the better examples. Just random shopkeepers down there. Just
Undermine,
selling their
I
wares.
believe as well.
And yeah, Undermine. There are random levels with that. I played Hades not too long ago, and actually, for that matter, a lot of roguelikes have just parts where all of a sudden a shopkeeper shows up, and you can spend some of your money on upgrades and stuff like that.
So, in the retro to that, in the side to that, okay. In difference to that, but in the same vein as that, Curse of the Dead Gods, which we've talked about before as well, is a roguelike that doesn't have shopkeepers because it's got altars.
Oh, okay, right.
So it's at the end of every floor or so, I believe. It's got an altar, and it's got items you can pick, and you do pay for them, either in coin or in blood, but it is not a shopkeeper.
Okay.
So it's you get 3 items that are on display. You can choose one to take that you can pay for, or you can take none, and then you can re-roll with which ones are there a number of times for your run. But yeah, it's not a shopkeeper. There's no one manning it. It is an altar of the gods, and you sacrifice money or blood to acquire these items.
Right, right. Hades is the one that I played probably more recently. Well, no, I played a few others, but Hades is the one that actually has a shop where you have the boatman Sharon, who will let you use boatman coins that you've accrued over the course of your run to buy upgrades and abilities and such. Or possibly a nice sub that you can eat so that you can regain health. More on that later. But the idea, I think, more than just the mechanics of it, because I think we all kind of understand the mechanics of it, right? Like, you're getting currency, you're in these dungeon crawls, you're in these roguelikes. You gotta use the money for something, but they can't really take you out of the dungeon in order to utilize it most of the time. So they have to create, like, a shop there. What I'm more interested in is the justification in world of why. Like, Sharon is the boatman. Why does Sharon just show up in the middle of of
He's got a boat full of goods from all the dead that he ferries.
Okay, I mean, I guess I could but why show up at specific locations, right? Like,
Because boats have to find a port, Nathan.
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Take a good hard look. Okay. So that might explain Sharon.
Yeah, that explains the ferryman of the River Styx. He's on the River Styx. There are ports or there are docks.
or their docks, right? Right. Okay. Well, that might explain Sharon, but now the altars, that actually seems somewhat self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a temple.
You're in a
So there are
temple.
going to be altars.
There are
Those
gonna
are
be
those
altars.
lore-wise, it would make sense. There are altars to make offerings to the gods.
Okay. So we're good there. Okay. Spelunky.
I've never played Spelunky.
Okay. Well, I've played some Spelunky. And I can tell you that there's levels as you're going through the mines. Spelunking through the mines.
Delving.
You're delving through the mines, yeah. Basically, we take the cover from the original, and you put that there. That's the game. But the shopkeeper is just around. Like, the shopkeeper has set up shop in the middle of the mine. For reasons. No one knows what reasons.
Well, how did he get there?
Exactly. How did he get there? More importantly, the shopkeeper, there's different shopkeepers. I mean, they all look the same.
Oh.
But if you kill the shopkeeper in one level, there's a new shopkeeper. There's like another shopkeeper later.
Do you get anything if you kill the shopkeeper?
I mean, whatever they had there at that time. Like the items that were on sale, you could just loot all of those. But the shopkeeper, the second you try to take something or attack the shopkeeper in that, gets out a shotgun and starts just shooting you. No, see. Now here's the thing though. If you pull this trick a few times, the shopkeepers will instantly become like super aggressive towards you the second you walk into the shop and just start trying to murder you. So
Alright then.
So
I was going to ask if you could just go through the game killing all the shopkeepers, but I guess that's probably a no.
it would be hard because it gets increasingly difficult. But so what we've learned from this whole experience is, one, a bunch of shopkeepers thought it was a good idea to set up shop in a mine where there's literally like one person that travels this mine. And two, they also have a network where they are able to communicate with each other that, hey, be on the lookout for this murderous adventure that is going through these mines in that period. It's a bad economy. I gotta be honest with you.
So why did they set up their shops in the mines?
I have no idea.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it does. And
Especially with crazed madmen going around killing all the shopkeepers.
Yeah. Apparently this happens quite a bit. And also, that's not good real estate. I think this is where I get into the biggest problem when it comes to shopkeeping. So if you figure it, let's just think about general business. Location, right? Like, it's always about trying to find a good spot to put your business where you're gonna get a lot of foot traffic. Mines and dungeons are not that.
Well, I suppose the question really should then become, who are they actually trying to sell to? Are they trying to sell to the people that come down, the adventurers that you're playing? Or are they trying to sell to the monsters that inhabit the mine or the dungeons? Because if their clientele happens to be the monsters in the dungeons mines, then perhaps they actually have a great idea to be setting up there.
But then wouldn't their items be more akin for the monsters than for the adventurers? Or thought the items that they give to you are specifically for the adventurers, and then when you're not there and the monsters come by, new items come onto the shelf.
Well, sure, and the thing there is they can easily acquire these goods from the monsters, to sell to the adventurers from the monsters that have killed people to get these goods. So the question is now, if that's their business model, what are they giving the monsters?
Oh yeah, probably the bones of adventurers that have died in the mines before.
Well, the monsters get those from killing them. I assume they're providing locations and names for the monsters to go out to and murder and slaughter.
And maps.
And
Maps, yeah. Traps. They could
Traps.
sell traps.
And
Kobolds
traps.
would love that.
They'd be dead.
they'd all yeah. Or if you had a shopkeeper that actually was kind of rooting for the adventurers to come and destroy the monsters, you could give them faulty traps because they're not going to test them in the store, right? How many kobolds are going to think to themselves, yeah, you know what I really want to do? I'm going to test these traps in the store. No, just buy a trap. You need to buy the trap. That seems like a great side hustle. I mean, one thing I will give them for the shopkeepers is the benefit of setting up in a mine or dungeons and stuff like that is your overhead is very low.
Yeah, no, there's no real estate costs there. Dig a hole in the ground and then set a shop up.
Yeah, just make sure that it's a place with enough monsters that people will want to come down there. Do that, but also, like we were just saying, like what is your inventory gonna cost, right? I mean, you're just basically looting monster bodies, or just like making some maps for, or reusing traps. These are just like broken traps. Just grab the traps from the mine, sell them to the monsters, and they'll just use them again, and you make profit. It's all scavenging at that point. You're not really buying specific products, I can see maybe like health potions, but I would think health potions you just scavenge from the mines too.
Sure. No one drinks them anyways.
No one bothers to actually drink them. In the meantime, there was the other thing too. I don't know how much you played like Dark Souls, but yeah, but in Souls-likes, sometimes they will actually have they'll have shopkeepers, but they'll be just somewhere in the middle of like the castles and stuff. And I kind of get that more because you figure that there's going to be a lot of people in the castles, but they're sometimes in like really like out there locations, like just under a staircase. I had a smith that was like just under a staircase before you go into this room where there's a giant like four-legged demon that tries to just instantly kill you. And I was like, this is a terrible location under a staircase at the bottom of this long contraption before I go into a room where there's just a giant monster. Or maybe it's brilliant because all the adventurers that come through go and buy your stuff or upgrade their stuff, then they die, and then you just go and snag it later and then sell it back to them.
That explains why he's got so much stuff.
That's why he has so much stuff. That's actually really good. Maybe some of these shopkeepers have an idea.
Maybe they have an idea or two.
They have exactly two ideas. Sell to the adventurers and sell to the monsters that are in the dungeon. You get
perfect.
You get two different streams of revenue here. This is a really interesting idea. Okay, so why do you think we don't see this in tabletop gaming? Like, why haven't people thought to put this into tabletop? I don't see it in, like, adventure modules. I've never heard of it. I've never really seen a GM run it that way, where all of a sudden there's a "what are you buying, dude?" that's in the that's in the Resident Evil, like, after the giant fish monster. Yeah, hi, I've been traveling along the street, just saw that you dealt with that fish monster. Want to buy a gun? No, I needed it back there. I needed it there, please. So why doesn't it really show up in tabletop gaming?
That's a really good question, and it probably goes into the same question we asked before about who the hell designs these dungeons.
In some cases, it is the people that make the modules. In some cases, it's the people that are running the game, if you're doing a homebrew.
Yeah, but in game world, who the hell is making those dungeons?
Yeah, and why are you doing all the cul-de-sacs? No one thinks, hey, you know what? I'm going to build a dungeon, and this is going to be the marketplace, where we just set up shops.
This down here, that's the food court.
Yeah, we finally set up the Orange Julius next to the dungeons.
It's right in there. Monsters really love a good Thai salad.
Yes, they do. There's the episode title. So monsters really do love...
The episode title is just Kobolds Really Love Thai Salads.
Yeah, kobolds really love Thai salads. Perfect. Encapsulates the whole thing.
We'll just call the whole thing is just gonna be food for thought.
Food for thought.
It's just gonna be corn and cabbage, lots of cabbage.
Corn and cabbage, yeah. Food for
My
thought.
cabbages.
Food for thought sounds like a great idea to put into a food court if it was Psychonauts. That's the food court in Psychonauts. So no, I don't know why they don't put it more in tabletop. Maybe because if you're trying to do something that feels realistic, and I think a lot of people that are playing like RPGs, even though it's a fantasy, they want some form of realism, don't necessarily think that it would make any sense whatsoever to have a shop in the middle of a dungeon.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, these dungeons are sprawling fucking cave networks that make no sense.
This is true. This is true.
So throw all the shops. Throw a whole ass shopping mall in your dungeon.
It would get a lot more traffic if you put enough.
It would.
If it was a mall underground, like actually, if it was a mall underground, you might have something there because then it's a one-stop shop for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
we're just gonna
go ahead.
We're just gonna make a shopping mall as the dungeon, like we said before.
Yeah. Yeah. A shopping mall dungeon would be amazing.
And then you can have a monster boutique.
A monster boutique?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, finely crafted monsters and machinations for your...
And then you can have like a monster arena in there where the monsters get one side of the dungeon is a mall for them and the other side is the mall for the adventurers, and you can fight to the death in the pit in the middle, and then they're taking bets out front. Solid business model.
Solid business model. You know, I really think that there's a market there for, like, if they made a paintball course in the middle of the dungeon for the monsters and the adventure, because then they don't kill each other and they'll come back for more. It's more repeat business.
Or they could just kill each other and then you get more people to come for the blood money.
This dungeon is turning out to be a dystopic hellscape in itself.
Every episode's gonna have hellscape.
It all has a hexscape. It's a hexscape now.
It's all hexscape. That's the favorite thing now, because my son called it this hexscape instead of hellscape.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I hear hexscape, though, I think it's like a six-sided plane of existence.
We need to do a merch design. It's just like it'll be something with that hexscape.
Oh, well, I mean, we can kind of keep the die because it's already six sides, right?
Yeah.
And we just call the hex.
Instead of time, we can be like, it's time to escape, but it'll be time to hexscape.
Hexscape the dungeon. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Now, if you don't have a collection of merchants that could build a mall, though, in the dungeon, I would normally think that the smartest thing to do would be to build your shop outside the dungeon, like at the dungeon entrance, before the adventurers go down into it, because it becomes ultimately harder to find the shop.
Just build a toll booth.
Toll booth! Perfect! You don't even need product at that point.
Yeah, it's like you have $15 per person to go in the dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. You charge admission to the dungeon. There should be admission to the dungeon. Oh, you know, I think they did that in Rogue Legacy. You have to pay a certain amount of money to go back into the dungeon. So, to go back in. So, you really find that you're not really making much progress if you only get so much gold. Like 100 gold or something.
You know what you really need to do is outside the dungeons just sell life insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And then just never pay it out.
Well, you don't have to. Who are you going to pay it to?
Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, you died. No, you're not actually. It's like life insurance. It's like, we'll bring you back to life insurance.
Yeah, it's basically the Necromancer.
Yeah, except they don't. They just take your money.
Or the Cleric.
Or they don't specify it, and in small print on the contract it says, as an undead minion.
Yeah. That would be a great business model, though, for Necromancers, actually, is just like, it's cheap resurrection, but you are my undead servant forever.
Yeah. If I ever play a game where I get to be a Necromancer, I'm gonna pull that as a racket. Be like, yeah, I want to build a
It's
shop.
a good racket. Yeah.
Like, a shop for what? I'd be like, life insurance. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, in the contract, I'm gonna write this up really nice and neat so people barely notice this, but it's gonna be like, I'll bring you back to life for a fee if you die, but you'll be an undead minion of mine.
Yeah.
So people are paying me to be my minion at that point.
Yeah. Now you set that outside the dungeon. before they go in.
And that's how you raise your undead army to take over the town.
Yeah. Or, even better, you just raise them up, and now they're the monsters in there. So that the
Even
next
more fun.
the next ones that come through die, then you resurrect them, and it gets increasingly harder and harder to get through that dungeon. And you just tell people that I put a treasure at the very back of that long cave system. That's why they built it that way. So, with the winding, stupid cave system. It's because he's like, okay, there's a treasure chest somewhere in the back. It's like a maze. It's like a corn maze, but underground with a lot of undead minions that he raised from scratch. This is a great idea for an adventure, folks.
So I think we figured out the reason why you build a market in the dungeon.
Yeah, to sell to zombies.
Yeah.
To sell to zombies. Okay. So that's great. Okay. But that actually leaves me with a question that I want to give to everybody else, which is, what would you sell to a monster if you were a shopkeeper? Because if that really is the case where, you know, they're trying to sell to the monsters in the actual dungeon, how would you do that? Could you set that up as a mechanic?
Mechanic to sell things to monsters?
Yeah. What's the thing behind that? Is there actually a mechanic that can be put into place to sell items to monsters?
I think it's just called bartering.
It's just called bartering?
Yeah.
Thanks for ruining the magic.
Yeah. Find a better question.
Okay, fine. I'll find
The better question is, what would you sell to monsters if you had a shop in a dungeon?
That's a better question. Okay. What would you sell to monsters? I don't know. That's up to you. We're going to pass the question on to you now. What would you sell to monsters if you ran a shop in a dungeon? That's a very specific question. I like those.